The new era of Nebraska football officially began today, and if you watched the show the university put on this afternoon, you're probably feeling pretty good about where things are headed. Trev Alberts and Matt Rhule both answered plenty of questions that gave us some insight on this search and, more importantly, what to expect from the program going forward. There's a lot to unpack and analyze to try and get an idea of what this team will look like going into next year. And on top of all the words we hear, coaching spots on this staff are still being filled as I speak. The nutrition and strength staff has been confirmed, but it sounds like we're going to start to see these other positions get filled in pretty quick here. So today, I'm giving you these 6 things I learned during today's press conference, and we're going to talk about some of these coaches who are rumored to be coming to Lincoln. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss any of the videos I drop. And if you liked what you heard in today's presser, hit the like button now to help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
Yet across midfield. Touchdown, Nebraska! Omar Manning.
The first guy we got to talk about today is Casey Thompson. I just got done reading an article where he admitted to playing with a partially torn labrum on his throwing shoulder, an injury that happened during week 3 against Georgia Southern. He's rehabbing it now, thank God, but it affected his ability to throw a spiral consistently. His deep ball range dropped from 70 yards to 50, and he had less range of motion. I wasn't sure if Casey would want to come back another year because the O-line situation really hurt, and it didn't allow him to be at his best mentally and now obviously physically. But he and Rhule have had conversations. Casey talked to some mutual connections, and he remembers Baylor having a strong line and a strong D. And because Rhule asked him to be his quarterback next year, I'm confident in saying that Casey's going to come back and try to improve on his 2022 performance. This will be his 3rd offense in 3 years, but because he's one of the smartest quarterbacks Nebraska's ever had, and he understands football as a whole, probably better than any player on the team, I know he could pick it up quick and 100% improve on what he's done so far. This Tuesday, November 29th at 7:15 p.m. Central, we'll be doing a live call-in show with John Johnston from Corn Nation here on YouTube to talk about everything we know so far and to answer any questions or get any takes that you guys have since this has been a really busy week. I take calls from our Corn Crazed Discord group, so you just click the link in the description box below to join our Discord for free, and then when I'm on the live tomorrow, I'll explain how to call in. It's super simple. And I have merch available at corncrazed.com for the next month or so before I take the site down. So if you want to support the channel and get a shirt, hoodie, stickers, or whatever else, the discount code for 25% off your entire order is GBR. So you just enter GBR at checkout and you're good to go. The hoodies, the one I'm wearing right now, is amazing. It's great quality and everyone who's gotten one loved it. So if you haven't tried it yet, I recommend it, but I guess I'm biased. Let's look at my notes from the presser and what stood out to me the most. Number 1, Matt Rhule was the clear number 1 choice. Trev listed some characteristics today that he said made Matt the number 1 pick from the beginning. A man of integrity who does the right thing all the time. Someone with a focus on toughness. An authentic leader. Someone who's passionate about winning. A coach with a clearly defined identity. A culture builder and a people manager who can build brick by brick. A process-oriented individual, and last, a coach with a passion for winning. There was speculation that Rhule was a backup choice because Trev couldn't land a big name, but Ted Carter said Nebraska didn't have any coach turn him down. And he said Trev reached out to 13 total and that Rhule was the obvious best fit based on what he was looking for. Number 2, he was the biggest name available on the market. Rhule admitted to being offered by other schools, and one that had serious interest was Auburn, who's similar in terms of status and falls into the second tier of programs nationally with Nebraska. Luke Fickell and Hugh Freeze were both available as well, and while I have to assume Fickell would have chosen Lincoln over Madison, the final contract numbers are a reflection of a coach's market value. Nebraska agreed to 8 years at $74 million with 90% of that guaranteed, which breaks down to $9.25 a year and puts him at number 6 nationally, right behind Mel Tucker and Ryan Day in the Big Ten. Luke Fickell's deal is $7.9 million a year for 7 years, and Hugh Freeze agreed to $6.5 for 6 years. You can try to say Nebraska overpaid, but the fact is, to get this caliber of a coach, you're going to have to pay at least what your competition would to get him. And yes, I am one of those people who felt like $9.25 million a year was overpaying. But the market's the market, so I can't really argue with it. Number 3, this entire staff is going to be more proven than what we've seen in the past. Scott Frost decided to bring his entire UCF staff over for good reason, but after a couple years, the lack of Power 5 experience started to show, and hiring Brian Applewhite, Mark Whipple, and Mickey Joseph proved that with more money for assistants, you're going to have better results. Ohio State and Alabama pay their assistants almost $8.5 million a year, but they're proven and they've gotten raises, so that makes sense. In 2022, the total pool for assistants at Nebraska was just over $5 million. But going forward, the new total number's set at $7 million. That's enough to poach proven Power 5 coaches, and over time, if they perform and deserve raises, that number will for sure go up. This is the most a head coach or assistants have ever made at Nebraska, and it's not even close. Number 4, Rhule is the opposite of Scott Frost. And let me first say, I was shocked to hear that the two talked after he was announced as head coach. 1, because I didn't realize they were good friends, and 2, because I had just assumed Scott Frost would want to cleanse himself of Nebraska for a bit. Rhule basically said he wanted to make sure that Scott knew he had a ton of respect for him as a coach and as a person, and that he didn't want to come off as disrespectful for taking this job under these circumstances. It's just another sign of this guy's integrity and how he operates. But my understanding of Frost is that he was a little cold, he didn't engage with the community very often, and basically lived his life in seclusion. The quote from our new coach today, "We did not come here to live in seclusion. We came here to be a part of the community." He's the type of guy who will be out at his kid's soccer games, he'll go to different events, probably be a part of a church, and he won't be somebody you'd view as unapproachable or a little scary. On the field, Frost said that he wanted to make the Big Ten adjust to his style, and we saw how that went. Rhule's focus is winning in the trenches and playing good defense, the literal opposite of what we were promised 5 years ago. Matt's quote, "You have to be able to play in the heat early in the season and the elements late. If you can't play defense in this league, there's 3 or 4 times a year you're going to get run off the field." And one more good one, "I don't believe you can win if you don't win the line of scrimmage." Number 5, recruiting's his number 1 priority. Rhule knows he has some talent on the roster already, and retaining starters is going to be just as important as bringing new ones in. He mentioned that none of these players signed up to play for him, but his goal is to talk to each guy and hopes that they'll want to be a part of what he's building. I know he reached out to all the current commits, and he's already made, I think, 12 offers so far, so when he gets on the road Friday to lock in this next class, he'll already be ahead of schedule. 4-star tight end Thomas Fidone, who I honestly thought was a lock to leave, posted up a picture on Twitter of Temple versus Notre Dame in 2015, which basically means he's open to talking to Matt Rhule. I think we'll see a lot of guys opt to come back, not only because leaving in the portal's tough, but because Rhule's a charismatic leader, and the shift in energy from the last staff to this one might be enough to make the current players buy into the hype and want to be a part of a rebuild. And last at number 6, Mickey Joseph is welcome to stay. Since day one, fans have hoped to see MJ in red next year, both as a receivers coach and a recruiter. And today, Rhule confirmed that he's heard a lot about Mickey and that he already reached out and is looking forward to talking with him. There are some coaches who are obviously not being retained because they don't have strong enough resumes or they don't have any relationship with the new guy, but this one's totally different. Good coaches want other good coaches on their staff, and this would be a no-brainer hire. The only thing I think that's standing in the way is a job like Tulane, since that one's still open and it's close to home, or maybe another surprising job offer would come up, but I just have a hard time believing a school like Colorado would be willing to take a risk on him at this point. Mickey's one good option for this staff, but we've got a few spots to fill, so let's talk about what we've learned so far. Corey Campbell's confirmed to be Nebraska's next strength coach, and this picture of him from Baylor went pretty viral yesterday when it was first announced. The guy looks like a monster, which makes sense since he played fullback at Georgia 10 years ago, and at Baylor he was the director of athletic performance for 4 years, and now he's coming off 2 years as a strength and conditioning assistant for the Panthers. He has plenty of experience, he's young so he understands the modern football player, and I just have to assume this is going to be an upgrade since he understands and bought into Rhule's toughness culture. Next up is Terrence Knighton, who hasn't been announced officially yet, so we don't know what his title is, but he's coming from the Panthers as well, where he served the last 2 seasons as an assistant D-line coach. He played at Temple and then he spent 8 years in the NFL before taking the job as a D-line coach at Wagner in 2019. And he was a third-round draft pick, spent plenty of time as a pro, and now has 4 years experience as a coach. So I'm assuming he'll take on the same role, and I'm interested to see what he thinks about the current size up front. Evan Cooper's joining the staff as a defensive backs coach, and I'm not sure if he's going to take over the entire room or just the corners, but we'll find out soon. He played on the same Temple team as Terrence Knighton, and he's been working on Rhule'S staff since 2013. He spent 2 years as a corners coach at Baylor and 3 years with the Panthers before he got fired 3 weeks ago. He was the recruiting coordinator in addition to being a position coach at Baylor, so he brings in more experience and more tools as a recruiter than most assistant coaches would. Ed Foley, who was an assistant at Temple for 10 years, an analyst at Baylor in 2019, and an assistant special teams coach on the Panthers, is another guy who can do a lot. At Temple, he coached the O-line and special teams, and he took over as the interim head coach after both Rhule left in 2016 and Collins left in 2018. I've got no clue where he's going to be coaching, but recent history would say on the special teams. Last on this list is Marcus Satterfield, who's the reported offensive coordinator. And I'll go more into depth on him after he's announced, but he was the OC for South Carolina this year who worked with Spencer Rattler and finished off the season with 2 huge wins over Tennessee and Clemson. So that's something to be excited about. I'm pumped for more info to come out this week, and I'll keep dropping content so you can stay in the loop. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Was this presser what you expected, or did you learn some things you didn't know before? Were you impressed with Rhule and what he had to say, or did you take it all as coach speak? And do you think Casey and some of these other starters return next year despite what Mickey does, or is he the key piece holding that group together? I'll see you on the live stream tomorrow, but until then, thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Go Big Red.